Radha Govinda Ki
Jai.
Dalila Vishvam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivratacharya Astatara Satashri Srimad Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada
Ki Jai.
Nitya Lila Vishvam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivratacharya Astatara Satashri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev
Ki Jai.
Shri Gaudiya Guru Varga Ki
Jai.
Prem Sakho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nanda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki
Jai.
Shri Navadvip Maya Pradam Ki
Jai.
Ganga Devi Ki
Jai.
Shri Muni Devi Ki
Jai.
Shri Vrindavan Dham
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Samagata Bhaktivinoda Ki
Jai.
Jai Gaur Premanande
Hari Hari Bol. So tonight is our first night resuming our classes on Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali of Srila Raghunath Goswami. And we just had a very ecstatic Vyasa Puja festival of the 101st anniversary of our beloved Gurudev Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Many devotees converged here in New Braj, and we had very wonderful offerings, Pushpanjali, by numerous devotees. So today is the day after. It's been extremely busy here for the last 3 days, I would say. And so resuming Vilapa-kusumanjali and probably continuing on with that. So I'm saying my Mangala Charan. Gurve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vansha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne Gaura tvishe namaha Nityanandam namastubhyam Prem ananda pradayane Kalo kalamashanashaya Janava pataye namaha Ajanu lambita bhujo kanaka vadato Samkirtanaika pitaro kamalaya taksho Vishwambaro dvijavaro Yuga Dharma Palo Bande Jagat Priyakaro Karnavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jayatam Shruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhashanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Preshtalipi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Vamshivata Tatakstitaha Karsana Venu Swanair Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshai Kshiptascha Kamadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Brahmanna Brinde Numaste Charanara Vindam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astotarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, especially to the lotus feet of our Prayojan Tattva Acharya, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad, the author of Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali, and we pray for his mercy that we can have a drop of faith in all of these exalted, most exalted prayers. Then I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and to all of the Vaishnavis. We began to read verse 30 in our last class. And we came up to maybe about the halfway point in the commentary. And in this verse, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, he is praying to the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. And he is saying, Mani Chaya Kachitabir Nila Chudava. Wait. Mani Chaya Kachitabir Nila Chudavalibir Hari Dayata Kalavid Dvandvam Indi Varakshi Apibata Tava Divyayar Angulir Anguliyai Kvachidapi Kila Kale Bhushayashyami Kim Nu. O lotus-eyed one, Srimati Radhika, when will I adorn your fingers with glittering rings and your two graceful arms which are so dear to Hari? When will I adorn them with blue armlets studded with jewels? You can repeat, Mani Chaya,
Mani Chaya,
Mani Chaya,
Mani Chaya,
Kachitabir,
Kachitabir,
Nila,
Nila,
Chudavalibir,
Chudavalibir,
Haridayata,
Haridayata,
Kalavid,
Kalavid,
Tvandvam,
Tvandvam,
Indivarakshi,
Indivarakshi,
Apibata,
Apibata,
Tava Divyayar,
Tava Divyayar,
Angulir,
Angulir,
Anguliyai,
Anguliyai,
Kvachid Api,
Kvachid Api,
Kilakale,
Kilakale,
Bhushayashyami,
Bhushayashyami,
Kim Nu.
Kim Nu.
O lotus-eyed one,
O lotus-eyed one,
when will I adorn your fingers
when will I adorn your fingers
with glittering rings
with glittering rings,
and your two graceful arms
and your two graceful arms,
which are so dear to Hari,
which are so dear to Hari,
with blue armlets
with blue armlets
studded with jewels.
studded with jewels.
So Srila Gurudev is telling about the blue bracelets and about Radhika's man. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, even though he is a siddha, he is playing the role of a sadhaka. He has passed the stages of anartha nivritti, nishta, ruchi, asakti, and bhav. He is in bhav avastha. 24 hours a day, he is always in that mood, but sometimes internal, sometimes half internal, and sometimes in external consciousness. When he is in external sense, he is always remembering the pastimes that he has seen in spurti or in internal awareness. So the whole book of Vilapa-kusumanjali is depicting Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's moods and how they've arisen that inspired him to write the shloka. Gurudev's commentary is actually bringing out the scene, the internal scene and scenes in which he is engaged directly in serving Srimati Radharani. Most of the verses thus far have been describing all of the beautiful seva that is performed by the manjaris, the palayadasis, and the Sakis for Srimati Radhika's bathing and decoration in the early morning period after she has returned from the forest after Nishanta Lila, and now she is in Yavat, and they are adorning her and bathing her and dressing her, and each and every item that they're giving is a very, very deep meditation and prayer of Raghunath Das Goswami. However, the actual verse, Gurudev points out, is generally written after he is about to perform that seva internally, and suddenly that vision disappears. In other words, he comes out of his internal state into half external, half internal. And Gurudev describes again and again and again. Now he is rolling on the bank of Radhakunda and weeping and calling out to Srimati Radhika in extreme separation mood. That is called Vilapa. Vilapa-kusumanjali means a garland of such beautiful prayers to Srimati Radhika to be engaged in her service. Why is this relevant for us? We are not in that stage that we can fully appreciate this. So why is this relevant for us, that we should hear about his moods, about his service as Rati Manjari and Tulsi Manjari? He has two names. Why should we hear this? Why is this relevant to us in a much lower stage of even aspiring to become a sadhak, or to speak of actually becoming a sadhak? So why are we reading this book and hearing the explanations of Srila Gurudev and hearing about the actual deep meditations that are behind the verse? Why this verse came up? There are so many different pastimes and leelas that Gurudev brings to our understanding in Braj, in the internal state, and all of the different exchanges, and especially how Srimati Radhika is completely absorbed in Krishna and is meditating on each and every item that is being offered to her. And her Sakis and her Manjaris, especially Manjaris, as they are doing their service, as they're combing her hair, as they're decorating her tilak on her forehead, as they are bringing alta for her lotus feet and so forth, all these different items, so many. And how they are reminding Srimati Radhika, as they're doing, they're actually speaking about Krishna's pastimes. And Gurudev points out that there's so much joking and laughing and incredibly beautiful, sweet moods that are being exchanged between Radhika and the gopis and so forth. So why is this relevant for us, that we should hear about this?
We had said that he is our Prayojana Tattva Acharya, so thus Prayojan is the goal, and unless we fix sadhya or goal, we don't know what to aspire for. And so far as his deep moods of separation, we also should understand our position is so much more distant than that. And so how much separation we should start to cultivate, and it's only by that humility that we can possibly grow.
Yeah. What is what we call our prayojan? What is it? How do we know? How do we understand what that goal is? Is our ultimate goal to become the eternal servant of Krishna? Yes or no?
No, we want to follow Srimati Radhika because we cannot have the position of Krishna. We can follow, he can say surrender to me, but who is the exemplar of such surrender? Not he himself, but Radha. So therefore we serve her and follow her and please him.
Well, we're hearing these philosophical points. But do we want them? We hear them. We hear that this is our goal, our ultimate goal. Our Gurudev also. That's one of his unique exchanges with his neophyte disciples. That Gurudev stimulated within the devotees some attraction to serving Radha and Krishna in Braj, but especially being in the group of Srimati Radharani, being Radha Paksha and serving her. And Gurudev gave so much Lila Katha. He was giving Lila Katha. We have his pranam mantra. Srila Gurudev's pranam mantra, his second pranam mantra, is what? Shri Krishna Lila Katane. Katane Sudaksham. What does that mean? Shri Krishna Lila Katane Sudaksham. You know the meaning?
Lila Katani would be like the speaking, the kata of the Krishna Lila. Sudaksham is beauty?
No.
Very.
See, this is why when you read Sanskrit verses, Sanskrit prayers, and so forth, I'm telling you by my own experience of 52 years, that look at the synonyms, look at the verse. This is how you'll remember it, actually. If you want to commit it to your memory especially, you have to look at the words. What are the meaning of each word? You should, and I'll tell you something, if you do that all the time, as I have tried to do, you will learn the meaning of many, many words. And then when you're reading the verses, even without the synonyms there, and then you read the translation, then you can recognize how the arrangement of the Sanskrit is telling what you see in the English translation. To some degree, to some extent. Only a Sanskrit scholar can break that down completely. But it's also very helpful for us, especially in pranam mantras that we recite for our acharyas, that we should know the meaning of every word in that first line, then in the second line, and it corresponds generally with the English translation of the sentence. So the first thing, in Gurudev's pranam mantra, it is saying how expert Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj is in speaking Krishna Lila Katha. Not just Krishna Lila, Shri Krishna Lila, which means who? Radha and Krishna. Shri Krishna Lila Katane Sudaksham. Sudaksham means very expert. Very expert. Okay, so what's the next line? Shri Krishna Lila Katane Sudaksham Audaurya Madhurya Gunais Chayuktam. What does that mean?
Madhurya means munificence.
Yes.
And Madhurya means sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
And Gunais Chayuktam means, Gunais means qualities.
Yes. Chayuktam.
Yuktam.
In other words, that Krishna Lila Katha is imbued with both of these aspects of the magnanimity which is shown in Krishna's Leela as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and also shown in Krishna's Leela in Radha Krishna Braj Leela. So, Audaurya, Madhurya, Gunaish, Chayuktam. That means that Katha, Yuktam, means that Katha that he's speaking is imbued with both of these moods. Then it says, Varam Varenyam, Purusham Mahantam. What's the meaning? Varam Varenyam. Varam means very great. Varenyam means very highly worshipable. Varenyam, that's in our Gayatri mantra. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Which mantra is it in?
Brahma.
First one.
Brahma Gayatri mantra. What is that? Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam.
It means worshipping Parvati.
Varenyam, actually, if you read Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj commentary, he wrote a commentary in Sanskrit. And if you go to his book called The Golden Volcano of Divine Love, oh no, not that one. Subjective Evolution of Consciousness. At the end of that book is his commentary on the Brahma Gayatri mantra, and he tells the meaning of each word, but especially in the context of the full meaning, because he's actually extracting the full meaning of the Brahma Gayatri mantra and explaining it, how each word within that Brahma Gayatri mantra is actually enabling and helping the final purport of the Brahma Gayatri mantra to be manifested. Because everybody in India, you have even regular popular music, where they're singing the Brahma Gayatri mantra. Most people in India know that. But what do they think it is worshipping? Who is being worshipped?
They think the sun. I mean, our sun, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And what do they think of Bhur Bhuva Svaha? Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam.
It's going up the planetary systems.
They think, because Bhur Bhuva Svaha, the sun planet is traversing the universe. So, at all levels of the universe, this is a general lower, middle, upper, Bhur Bhuva Svaha, right? So, they think like that it's indicating the different levels within the universe. And Savitur, Tat Savitur, we know that the word Savita means the sun planet. That's one of the names of the sun planet. But here Srila Sridhar Maharaj is telling, Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur. He's saying that these three indicate levels of consciousness. Levels of consciousness. And Savitur means the soul, the Atma, that is shining in different stages of consciousness. Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur. Varenyam. Varenyam means highly worshipable. Then, there's actually three parts. Gurudev told it. After Varenyam, then you pause, and then you say the next second part, and then the third part. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Those three words are the next second part. Bargo means what? No, what is the meaning of the word Bargo?
Brilliance.
Yes. Sun rays, the rays of the sun. How they're penetrating Bhur Bhuva Svaha, all the areas of the universe. Okay? But here he's saying, in context of bringing out the final meaning of the Brahma Gayatri mantra as being what? What is the actual purport of the Brahma Gayatri mantra?
Meditation on Radha Krishna.
No.
No? Bhargava.
I heard, I could be wrong, or maybe I misremembered, that it's the light coming from Srimati Radhika. Is that something else?
No. The Brahma Gayatri mantra is bringing us to the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika in the mood of Radha Dasyam. Yes. And his Sanskrit, he's written a number of lines of Sanskrit. And the final 3 words in his final line are depicted on his Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. They're written there in Sanskrit. Radha Padam Dhimahi. I meditate upon Radha Pada, the lotus feet of Radha. But not just meditate, because the words, as it approaches the end of the line of Brahma Gayatri mantra, then it says, Dhimahi. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Who is Devasya? Krishna. Deva. Bhargo Devasya. The Swarup Shakti potency of Krishna. Bhargo, like the sun and its rays. So in this case, Bhargo means Srimati Radhika, who is the Shakti, who are like the sun rays of Krishna, who is Shaktiman. And her service mood to Krishna is encompassed with Dhimahi. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Srila Sridhar Maharaj points out that this Dhimahi means the deepest meditation in Mahabhav praying of Srimati Radhika on Krishna. Then Dhiyo, Yo Naha. Naha means we. We are meditating upon. Dhiyo, Yo Naha. Prachodayat. Prachodayat, you know the meaning of the word Prachodayat? You should if you've been chanting the Gayatri. How many years you've been chanting the Gayatri mantra? 12 years. What is the meaning of Prachodayat? It's in all the Gayatri mantras that we chant every single day.
I was
given
a visualization for each mantra, but I never memorized the word for word.
Okay.
So Prachodaya means like enthusiasm.
Well, it has multiple meanings.
Like action, like prachar?
In general, Srila Gurudev also explained, may you reveal in my heart Prachodayat, Guru Gayatri, Gaur Gayatri, Kam Gayatri, like this. Each has Prachodayat at the end of it. So this is called mantra chintan. In order to chant Gayatri mantras there, you have 5 different meditations that have to be completed to properly and correctly and successfully to chant Gayatri mantras. And the first one is called mantra chintan. Chintan means to think about. Chintan, to ponder, to think about. So you're thinking about the mantra and the meaning of the mantra and the words of the mantra. Without that, it's not complete, your chanting of the Gayatri Mantra. So, we have to read Srila Sridhar Maharaj's commentary. Maybe next class I'll bring that, and then we can actually read his full description. But Radha Padam Dhimahi is the final conclusion of the Gayatri Mantra. The Brahma Gayatri Mantra is actually worshipping the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. And Gurudev appreciated very much that Sanskrit commentary of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. He told that. There's also a commentary, I think, by Jiva Goswami. So, in this way, my question was, why should we be hearing this? What is being spoken and prayed for by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami? Although we are in neophyte stage. But what is the purpose? Why did Srila Gurudev give this commentary to various leaders of ISKCON in the early 90s? This was spoken. They had approached him. They wanted to become acquainted with the literatures of our previous acharyas. So this book, Vilapa-kusumanjali, Srila Gurudev mercifully gave his commentary. This is the first time it's being printed in book form. Right? So, we, although neophyte, we have to have a clear conception of what it is that we are striving towards in our efforts to perform sadhana bhakti. We have to have a clear conception what is the sadhya that we want to attain. So, we know that the very conversation in Chaitanya Charitamrita of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he met Sri Ramananda Roy in South India, we know that that whole conversation, which is called Roy Ramananda Samvad, Mahaprabhu wanted to hear from the lips of Ramananda Roy. And he asked him, please tell, what is the ultimate sadhya? And what is the sadhana to attain that? What's the meaning of sadhya?
Sadhya is the goal.
Yes. And what's the meaning of sadhana?
Practice.
The practice or the process?
Right.
The process. So, Gurudev would often tell us in his travels, in a general way, he would say, the first thing that you have to do is you have to fix your goal. You have to fix it. You have to hone in and determine that, yes, this is the ultimate goal.
Ultimate.
Even though, actually,
Sad.
there is a book that Srila Prabhupada wrote before he came to the West. And the manuscript was found by Nrsimha Maharaj in some boxes or trunks in the Radha Damodar temple, and it was never published, so he printed and published that. And it's actually Srila Prabhupada's beautiful, simple commentary on the Roy Ramananda Samvad, and he titled it, In Search of the Ultimate Goal of Life. Mahaprabhu was searching. That's why he came. That's why he wanted to meet Ramananda Roy. By meeting Ramananda Roy, of course Mahaprabhu is Krishna, Radha and Krishna combined, right? But he's Krishna, who has now come to fulfill 3 desires. Can he do it on his own? No. He requires the assistance because he's going into a foreign territory that he's not acquainted or familiar with. That realm of Srimati Radhika's Mahabhav and all the stages of Mahabhav. So like here in the book it's saying, some of the Sakis are saying, oh Krishna, you are a neophyte in painting. Just sit on the side, we will take over. So Krishna wants the assistance of Srimati Radhika's very own bodily expansions, who completely know Srimati Radhika and her moods. They know everything. And who is that? The chief of the Ashtashakis, Lalita and Vishaka. They're the chief, you see. So they appeared as Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami. That's why Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy were with Mahaprabhu personally in the final 18 years of his manifest pastimes, when he was going deeply, deeply internal. This is all described in the Antya Lila, and also it's described in the first or second chapter of the Madhya Lila. Before Krishnadas Kaviraj continued to write the Madhya Lila and Antya Lila, he wanted to give this just in case that he might leave this world. Yeah.
Was he also going to hear from Gadadhar Pandit during that 18 years? Or was that
yes, every morning. It was compared, Gurudev gave the comparison, Gadadhar Pandit being Srimati Radharani herself. He appeared and he came to Puri, and then he was given that place at Tota Gopinath to serve the Gopinath by Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu actually revealed the Gopinath deity from under the sand, you see. So he stayed there, and Mahaprabhu would come every morning after bathing in the ocean. Then he would come there, and then after that he would go back to his Gambira, his room. But when he came there at Tota Gopinath, then Gadadhar Pandit would read to him Srimad Bhagavatam. Not just reading like we read. Gadadhar Pandit was manifesting and explaining and completely imbuing the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with all of this siksha, these instructions about Srimati Radhika's prema and her moods and everything, because every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the deepest purport, has that. So, he would come there and he would receive his lessons from the professor, not just the professor, the dean of the university. And then he would go, and his homework was being done in the Gambira. And that's why Mahaprabhu had Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami with him day and night actually, for those last 18 years. And it's described so clearly in the final chapters of Antya Lila, how he was weeping and crying in separation, as Srimati Radhika was always doing when Krishna left Braj, and holding on to the necks of Ramananda and Swarup Damodar, as Srimati Radhika would hold on to her Sakis, and expressing his separation, and then they would in turn recite beautiful shlokas and prayers from Krishna Karanamritam, from Vidyapati, different ancient poets, Jayadev Goswami, Gita Govinda. They would recite all different prayers and shlokas to augment Mahaprabhu's moods. So, Mahaprabhu was showing us Srila Sridhar Maharaj says his taking of sannyas was mainly for the jivas. But of course, his own purpose is being fulfilled. But Gurudev said, does that mean then that because there's some Naimitic Leela in the final Puri pastimes, right? And there's some Aishwarya is also there. Gurudev said, Aishwarya means opulence and power beyond the human-like, pastimes. So Mahaprabhu's body was showing this aspect of Aishwarya, but in Navadvip Dham, there was no transformation in Mahaprabhu's body. Because Navadvip Dham is Braj, is non-different. In the spiritual world, it's the other side of the central whorl of the lotus flower. And they're non-different dhams, they're non-different. And Gurudev also told that some people say that Puri is non-different than Vrindavan, non-different than Braj. But Gurudev clarified that it is not stated by our acharyas in that way. Why? Because it is very clearly described by our acharyas that Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Navadvip, in his first 24 years, he performed his own Ashtakaliya Leela. And the devotees of Gauranga Mahaprabhu meditate upon Mahaprabhu's 8 time periods of the day. And through meditation on Mahaprabhu's Ashtakaliya Leela, then they meditate on Radha and Krishna's Ashtakaliya Leela. But in Jagannath Puri, there is no Ashtakaliya Leela. So Gurudev pointed that out, that Braj and Navadvip are non-different. And all the associates of Braj, the eternal Ragatmik Jan and the personal associates, father, mother, and all the different relations that Krishna has are fully there in Navadvip, Mother Sachi and so forth. But not in Jagannath Puri. Jagannath Puri is considered to be, like the temple, is considered to be what? Huh? Dwarka. And also Kurukshetra. When Mahaprabhu is coming into the Jagannath temple and he sees Jagannath, we know that he stood behind the Garuda Stamba in such a way that the forms of Baladev and Subhadra were blocked from his view. And in the mood of Srimati Radhika, he was seeing Krishna as Shyamasundar, Jagannath, playing his flute on the banks of the Yamuna and all of that. And his vision of Jagannath was exactly how Srimati Radhika was seeing Krishna at Kurukshetra when they reunited after such a long time. So he would feel those moods of separation. But this is like Krishna in Dwarka. The temple is Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Sudarshan, Krishna in Dwarka. And that's why the Rath Yatra festival, Mahaprabhu revealed, nobody knew this about the Rath Yatra festival, of being the actual, the chariot is actually the hearts of the gopis and Srimati Radhika. The chariot upon which Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra are riding is actually the very heart of the gopis. And Mahaprabhu clearly showed by his dancing, by the songs that he sang and everything, that he, in the Rath Yatra festival, is directly Srimati Radhika, seeing Krishna at Kurukshetra and telling to Krishna, I don't like to see you here. I want to see you in Vrindavan. And the festival, we learned that from the very first days, Prabhupada told. bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. And that's why Mahaprabhu's dancing is so filled with his moods of manifesting even outwardly, Mahabhav Prem of Radhika. And that's why Jagannath, who is Krishna himself, became astonished. That whole description. So the Ratha Yatra festival is one of the topmost leelas of Mahaprabhu, where he's showing, even in public, in front of millions of people, the moods of Srimati Radhika's prem, the separation moods, and how he's bringing Krishna, she in Mahaprabhu is Radha, and Radha is now pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. The chariot would stop. Nobody could pull the chariot. Nobody could push it. They brought elephants, everything, right? And the chariot was immovable. Well, Jagannath would not move. And then what did Mahaprabhu do? He came behind the chariot, put his head on the back part of the chariot, and with his arms out like this, he pushed with his head, and the chariot began rolling very, very fast. All these amazing scenes and pastimes, So we are in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami, we're in the line of Rupa Goswami, who was the only person there that understood why Mahaprabhu was singing an apparently mundane love song between a young lady who met her husband in her youth, and she's pining and pondering that scene, what it was feeling like at that time, right? On the river Reva, under the Vetasi tree, right? But nobody could understand why Mahaprabhu was singing this mundane poetry. But Rupa Goswami understood fully. And he wrote that corresponding verse, right? Yakko Madahara, Sa Eva Hivaras. How Radharani is speaking to Krishna at Kurukshetra and telling him that in my youth, in my Komara age, you stole my heart. Komara Hara. Hara means to steal. And you are that same Krishna, and I am the same Radha. But this place is not suitable for our exchange. All of your chariots and horses and this whole scene here is not sweet like in the banks of the Yamuna, where you used to play your flute in the 5th note. So, Mahaprabhu danced and danced the whole Ratha Yatra festival. And midway was the resting point in the forest right next to the road. And all the devotees went after taking prasadam, and they went there. And Mahaprabhu went underneath one tree. They used to have platforms around the trees. And he was lying there. And that's when King Prataparudra came there, following the instructions of Advaita Acharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, dressed as a Vaishnava, not in kingly dress, and came there and began to massage the legs of Mahaprabhu. And singing Gopi Geet. And when he came to the verse, Tavakatam Ritam Tapta Jivanam, then Mahaprabhu, he became so overwhelmed, and he says, Burida, Burida, which means munificent, so munificent. Burida. And then asking, who are you? you've come and given me this great gift. Because the king was singing very beautifully the Gopi Geet. And Mahaprabhu externally was showing that he didn't know who the king is, who is doing this. He knew and didn't know simultaneously. Because Krishna can sometimes be sarvagyata, knowing everything, and also mugdata. Mugdata means not knowing, ignorant. So in his leelas, through Yogamaya, Krishna forgets who he is. Yeah, so that Gopi Geet, when he recited, Mahaprabhu said, what can I give you in exchange? You have given me this great jewel, this great gift. But I am a sannyasi and I don't have any possessions that I can give you. But I have my embrace. So I'm giving you my embrace. I embrace the king. Yes, so we're being given the opportunity to relish and taste all of these deep leelas and pastimes, which is really what our ultimate goal is, and we should develop our taste and attraction for that. And although we may have many shortcomings in this current condition, but this katha is very, very powerful when we hear this from the lips of a pure Vaishnava, Srila Gurudev, how he is expressing these things. So we should know, because in our line, Srila Gurudev has opened up the treasure chest and showing the jewels to us. What are these moons? As Siksha Guru, he's done that. Yesterday, I forget who it was, mentioned from Chaitanya Charitamrita how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was hesitant to write all these things. And Gurudev quoted that in his introduction to the Venu Gita. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was saying, actually, all of these things, they should not be revealed. They should not, by dint of their nature of being so exalted. Very few can properly honor this. So, but then he began to muse that in actuality, oh no, one good thing about these topics is that there is an automatic like a wall. Automatically, there is a barrier, that's the word. There's a barrier that has to be crossed in order to enter these topics. But he gives the example of those foolish materialistic persons who are like crows, you know. They cannot appreciate this. They're automatically barred entry. You know, they're automatically, by dint of the nature of the topic itself, they're barred from entry. So then he rejoiced, Krishnadas Kaviraj, that what could be a more wonderful thing than this? That now I do not have to hesitate, because those persons who are not qualified, they cannot enter anyway. So there will be no fault, you see. And Gurudev, he followed that same principle in his distribution of all these very sweet and exalted katha. Shri Krishna Lila Katane Sudaksham. What does Sudaksham mean? Very expert. He knows how to give it. He knows what ration, how to ration it. Like a doctor knows how to prescribe certain medicine, right? Which amount of medicine should be consumed by the patient and so forth. So Srila Gurudev was supremely expert in this way. Sudaksham. And we're just very happy that we have this commentary of Vilapa-kusumanjali. It has been very, very enriching, even up to the 30th verse. Each and every verse, all the commentaries have been so beneficial for us to hear and very relishable in our heart. Although we cannot relish truly, like those who are in the stage of bhav and so forth. But nevertheless, it is attractive. And when we honor it properly, not thinking that we are qualified, no, never. If that thought begins to enter, then we are verging on the borderline of Prakrita Sahajiyism. There must always be an understanding, I am not qualified to hear this. But my Guru Maharaj, he has determined that I should now hear these things. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, what is the word? Up to this point, we have focused in his preaching mission in Gaudiya Math. I think he was at Radha Kund when he said this, or on Braj Mandala Parikrama. And he said, up to this point, we have mainly concentrated on anartha nivritti. You know what that is the meaning of these two words, anartha nivritti?
Is removal of the anarthas, unwanted qualities. I can't. Nivritti is the removal or the destruction of the unwanted qualities.
Yes, anartha nivritti. Anartha means, what is the word artha? Dharma, artha, kam, moksha.
Interest.
Those things that are wanted.
Yes, things that are wanted. So Prabhupada translated that as unwanted things in the heart. Also unnecessary, anartha. So nivritti means to destroy those impediments within the heart, to destroy. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, up to now, we have mainly focused on anartha nivritti. But now, at this stage, we must now begin to focus on artha pravritti. What is our ultimate necessity? Artha means our necessity. So what is our ultimate necessity? That he told. So that's the expertise of our acharyas, that they give appropriate katha for the disciples on different levels. There were also restrictions given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It is not that he gave permission for all the disciples, even to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and especially on Srila. Right? But yet Srila Prabhupada, discerning that this was absolutely essential, he also distributed the Chaitanya Charitamrita to the masses of people, to the ignorant masses of people, had his disciples distribute millions and millions of copies of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because they're transcendental literatures. And even if the person reads one word, it can completely turn his life. Gurudev was also asked, which books can we, remember? Which books can be distributed, O Gurudev? You've written so many books in some very high literatures. And do you remember his answer?
All for all?
Yes, all for all. So basically, it's the same exact principle as Srila Prabhupada. All of the Srimad Bhagavatam, all of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, all for all. Krishna book. What?
There was one exception. There's one exception to that. We were in a private darshan with the birds, the owners of the Rose Avenue Temple. And Gurudev was giving such beautifully, we first introduced and we started telling them about his trip to Rome and everything. So they had a nice conversation. They were the same age. They were all in their 80s, And then he turned to me and he said, get them some books. And it was, I don't know why I did this. It was kind of like, it wasn't teasing or even testing, but I just wanted to see. It was just being playful. So he said, get him some books. And he had just printed Sri Gita Govinda. He had just printed that book. And I said, Gita Govinda? He said, everything but. That's what he said. Anything or everything but.
Yes. Gita Govinda, you have to enter cautiously. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he also was quite strict in giving warning, caution to devotees to not try to push your way in. The way he described it was very poetic. It was like, do not try to forcefully enter into he called it the harem of the Supreme Lord. He used the term harem, meaning the kunja, where all of the gopis are and so forth. This is the confidential area. Don't try to forcefully push your way in. He also used that term, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So he gave quite warnings. But all of our acharyas, ultimately, they desired to give this. They desired to give Krishna's eternal pastimes from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then within that chapter are the highest, pinnacles of the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially in the 5 chapters of Ras Lila and in the 5 songs of the gopis. 5 songs of the gopis. And so I remember reading the Krishna book. We didn't know that was one of the 5 songs of the gopis. When there's a chapter called the Gopis' Feelings of Separation, and also the Gopis Remembering Krishna's Flute. So these are a couple of the songs from the 5 songs of the gopis. But I remember reading that as a young 18-year-old brahmachari, and how attractive that was. So all these books are powerful, all of this Katha is powerful, and it can change the life. That's why, Prabhupada has given those shlokas from the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Radhakanta recites those before his class every morning. And how, if a person even can read one word and even one syllable, just imagine, one word from any verse or one syllable has such potency, it can change the life of that person. This is unimaginable and quite inconceivable for us. But yet, as we were having this discussion this morning, this is the rasa swarup of Krishna. This is not just paper and pages and ink. This is Krishna's actual rasa swarup. Actually, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the book form, we used to bring it with us because Srila Prabhupada was questioned if we can have deities in our van. I was with Sudhir, Dear Krishna, and a few other brahmacharis. And after we did the big marathon in 1975 and the winter was coming, then it was arranged that we would travel in a mini Winnebago motorhome across country, and we would distribute at universities these new unabridged Bhagavad Gita before abridged Bhagavad Gita still. They printed so many of those. You'll remember it had kind of like a light yellow cover with a border around. painted by Jairam.
That was a donation from Alex to print all.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and so we were called the Bhagavad Gita University Distribution Party or something.
Did you
like
take
that.
the southern route?
Yeah, southern route. And we reached Florida, and we stayed there in Miami for a while, and and traveled around a bit. So I forgot the point that I came to that point.
So you talk about the potency of the books.
Oh, yes. And how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the rasa swarup of Krishna. So our acharyas have given these books, and this is a very big, huge pastime, lila, of Srila Prabhupada, sparking this enthusiasm in his disciples to distribute hundreds of millions of his books. Yeah. And then reading them. Srila Gurudev was trying to inspire the devotees in ISKCON to also distribute the books. I'll tell you one little pastime. One of the Gaur Govinda Maharaj disciples told me this, that they brought one devotee to meet Srila Gurudev from ISKCON. That devotee, I didn't hear the name of the devotee, but that devotee was really capable book distributor and distributed huge numbers of books, right? And in ISKCON they also keep scores, how many books are distributed, and if somebody, becomes known as being a very profuse book distributor, right, then it's almost as if he's elevated to some platform of that he's a great, great soul, incarnation of book distribution. So this devotee was being introduced to Gurudev. And Gurudev, this is in the earlier period, before he came to the West even. So this devotee was introduced to Gurudev as being one of the top book distributors in ISKCON. Yes. So Gurudev was looking at him, and he hears that, and then he says to him, "You should distribute those books into your heart." The devotee was taken back a bit,
The Australian devotee talking?
I don't know. No. It wasn't in Australia. That's a different person. I was there on that morning walk. Jagannath? No.
He's a big book from
Yeah.
Gaur Govinda.
Yeah. So we read the verse today, and we read a few lines of Gurudev's purport, but we'll resume. I'm not sure about tomorrow. I may be back, I may not. I'm planning to go to town tomorrow.
To mail the...
Well, to do a number of things, but we still have to work that out regarding the visa. We can't yet go because they have to give us a mailing label, and we've been corresponding with them, and this is just like a whole thing. So, but I have confidence that we're on the right track, but we have to accomplish this. Yeah.
I have a question if you have time.
Sure.
You mentioned that in Puri there was a sense of Aishwarya with Mahaprabhu's Leelas in Jagannath Puri.
Yes.
And I've heard that, it's a place of Aishwarya, it's like Guru said, it's like, where Krishna is king, where Jagannath is there. But maybe you could elaborate just a little bit, if you would want to, on how Mahaprabhu was, maybe, did you say he was demonstrating some Aishwarya as well? Is that correct?
Well, yes, he was. And I pointed out, this is what Gurudev told, that his transformations of his body were not naravat,
Oh, okay.
because a human would die. How his arms and legs became elongated, the joints became separated. I mean, just the astonishing bodily transformations, blood oozing from his port, all of that. Actually, Gurudev said, it's not stated in Srimad Bhagavatam because it would be too painful for the devotees. But Gurudev said, Srimati Radhika exhibited those symptoms and many others because of Mahabhav. You see. So, this is what Gurudev was explaining, like in Braj, Krishna never changes his form as throughout his Vrindavan Leela. But when Krishna goes to Mathura and Dwarka, sometimes he's exhibiting 4 arms, and there's Aishwarya mixed with that, right? But in Braj, pure Naravat Leela. And no one there knows that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in Mathura and Dwarka, they know. They know. But they also have that filial relationship with him, right? And very deep, intimate moods. But nothing compared to Braj. Because even the wives of Krishna, who have the most intimate relationship in Madhurya Rasa, but Svakiya, married relationship, even them, they're bewildered. How can the gopis so much capture Krishna's heart? So, the Vrindavan Leela, Braj Leela, is Naravat, human-like, completely. Because in the eternal spiritual world, that's how it is. And Krishna does not kill the demons in the Prakat Leela, Bhoma Leela. Bhoma Leela means the earthly. He does not kill the demons. It's not the son of Maharaj Nanda and Mother Yashoda that's actually killing the demons. Who is it? It's Vasudeva Krishna, who's within Krishna, who at the moment when he's fighting with the demon, then Vasudeva Krishna does that killing, not Krishna. But outwardly, nobody witnesses that Krishna's form has changed or anything in his leelas. But we know that, for example, Aghasur, it describes that Krishna expanded himself, right? And choked Aghasur, couldn't breathe. But nobody saw that. Even the cowherd boys were asleep in trance inside of Agasur's mouth. You see? Or
the poison.
Yeah, and also swallowing the forest fire and so forth. You know?
In fact, Krishna told everyone to close their eyes.
He did. Yeah. But also like how he killed. So just like in the wrestling arena of Kamsa, Krishna and Balaram, they looked like young, delicate boys. But the wrestlers knew, no, we have heard. You're not going to fool us. And so then they wrestled, right? And eventually, Krishna killed, right? He didn't change his form, but he killed them. All powerful. Then he set his sights on Kamsa and began to approach Kamsa, who was up in the stands. He climbed up like a lion and pulled him down and threw him on the ground, and then began pounding him with his fists. And Kamsa was like as strong as thousands of elephants. But he was finished at the hands of Krishna. So, in the Puri pastimes, some persons, I've heard, that Gaur Govinda Maharaj liked to say that the Vrindavan is there in Puri and so forth. But Gurudev was explaining that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his extreme absorption in separation modes of Srimati Radhika, Mahaprabhu, he saw what? He saw the ocean as the Yamuna. He saw the sand dune as Govardhan Hill, like this. So through his through his moods, he was feeling that he's in Vrindavan, like in the garden, alongside where he rested at the Ratha Yatra. That completely reminded him of Vrindavan. And then bringing the chariot to Gundicha, that whole forest area there where Jagannath stayed for 8 days, that was non-different than Vrindavan. By mood. So the Mahabhagavad Vaishnavas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing the behavior of a Mahabhagavad Vaishnava in his sannyas leelas. He was showing the behavior of exalted, liberated, Siddha Mahapurusha. He was showing that. So that was helping the jivas. That's what Srila Sridhar Maharaj said. Krishna was taking sannyas to help, especially preach and help the jivas. And what did he do? He preached for 6 years, traveling around India, went all the way south, all the way north, like this, and preached and converted. Right? But then when he came back after that journey to Vrindavan, then he never left Puri for the last 18 years. So, but Mahaprabhu was always showing this extreme mercy to the jivas of being in the form of a sannyasi and as Mahaprabhu, the great master, the master of all masters, Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Makes perfect sense, I understand.
Yeah. Okay, Gaur Premanande, Shri Vilapa-kusumanjali ki jai. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai. Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Purushottam Kshetra Dhama ki jai. Shri Gadadhar Pandit ki jai. Shri Ramananda Roy. Shri Sarup Damodar Prabhu's ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gauru Premanande. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Vrindai Tulsidebai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah